as opposed to the hush money case, though the president and the porn star certainly has a better television ring than campaign finance violation.
It's given a Lifetime movie for sure.
It sure does. You would be already charged. The case would have already taken place, and you would be incarcerated. So if we really believe that we're supposed to be a country where the law applies equally to everyone, which I think we all acknowledge it really doesn't. Right. We're not even a two-tier system of justice. Right. We're really three tiers. There's for all of us, the average people, then there's those in power, and then there's Donald Trump, who seems to be able to skirt the law whenever he wants and however he wants.
Now, even though the trial is right around the corner, Trump may still have a few more tricks up his sleeve to try and derail the case. So let's talk about it. Joining me now are two of my favorites, Paul Butler, an MSNBC legal analyst and former federal prosecutor specializing in public corruption, and Barbara McQuade, also an MSNBC legal analyst, is a former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan and the author of the amazing book, Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America. Want to get right into it with you both. Paul, I want to ask you the million-dollar question. We're all former prosecutors here. We've all been with the experience of getting to trial, being ready to go, and then something happens where it just doesn't go on the day that's planned. Everyone wants to know, is this actually going to go on Monday? Do you think that jury selection will actually start? And will we see the beginning of the first trial of the former president of the United States of America?
Charles, on Monday, something historic is going to happen. It will be the first day in Donald Trump's life that he is beginning to be brought to judgment in a criminal case for his own alleged corruption. As you noted, his lawyers have filed 9 different motions to delay the trial with Judge Merchan. They're trying to get around the law that they can't appeal until after the trial. That's what that Article 78 motion was about. And the reason for that, Charles, is that Trump's defense is delay. But when he's actually brought to judgment, when his cases are heard on the merits, he loses all the time. E. Jean Carroll beat him. Letitia James beat him in the civil fraud trial. Alvin Bragg beat him in the criminal conviction of the Trump Organization. The New York Attorney General took down his fake university and his fake charity. So Monday, April 15th, 2024, is going to be the worst day in Trump's public life because it's the first time he's personally being brought to judgment in a criminal court.
Barbara, I am able to take the glasses off and have some lawyer talk with both you and Paul because we're all former trial attorneys and prosecutors. Let's talk inside baseball in the sense that we've all tried cases before, and in many cases, we've tried cases that have had somewhat of a very public atmosphere, or press cases, if you will. That's what we call them as prosecutors, press cases, cases that are going to be in the press. Donald Trump has a ridiculous, almost insuperable public platform with respect to the amounts of people he can reach and the narrative that he can sell. If you're trying this case as the prosecutor, how do you keep the public environment, the circus-like atmosphere from interfering with how you go about doing your job?
Yeah, it's such an important point, Charles. I remember being a prosecutor in cases that were getting a lot of press attention. And one of the things we often said to each other is we have to tune out the noise. We have to focus on the case, but you also want the jury to tune out the noise. I think one of the things that Judge Merchan has decided to do here that I think will be very important is keeping the jury anonymous to the public. So the lawyers will know who they are, the court will know who they are, but in terms of public knowledge, there'll be, juror number 17 and juror number 72. I think that will help focus them. I also think jury selection is a really important part of this case. There is a lengthy questionnaire with 42 questions, a lot of them about what people have heard or read coming into this trial. And certainly everyone will have heard of Donald Trump. He's the former president of the United States. But if they are people who are, not news junkies like the three of us probably are, if they have not read some of these tell-all books, if they are not 24/7 viewers of Fox News, then chances are there are people who can set aside what they may know about Donald Trump and decide the case based on the facts that they hear in the trial. So that's what I'm looking for.
Barbara, I want to follow up with you on that for two reasons. Number one, you talked about having prosecuted cases that have gotten a lot of attention, and I think that we've all sort of been there. But you're talking now about the former president who literally has put out a notion that in 72 hours, this was what he tweeted yesterday on Truth Social, in 72 hours, all hell is going to break loose. This is not just a matter of a circus or someone who's calling attention to what could be a very monumental trial. We have NYPD, Secret Service, and New York court officers all trying to gear up and beef up security around this. At what point, if any, do you as a prosecutor say we need some additional protection because this is getting out of hand? Or do you just sort of leave that to Judge Merchan and focus on what you're trying to prove as the prosecutor in this case?
Well, I think it's the court's job to provide adequate security, but certainly if you're the prosecutor, you have an interest in the safety of your own prosecutors and every member of the public who goes into that courthouse, especially the jurors. So imagine you're somebody who received this jury summons and you show up at the courthouse and it's just a madhouse. You can't even get in. And so I think that the security is going to have a perimeter around the building. They're going to have a place where they're checking IDs and letting people in so that someone is not harassed just by, I'm an ordinary citizen and I've got my summons in my hand and I'm just fulfilling my duty as a citizen by showing up. You have to make sure those people are not, yelled at, spat upon, or impeded in any way from getting into the courthouse. And that's a challenge because people certainly have a First Amendment right of protest. And if they want to be outside that courthouse, expressing their views, they have a right to do that, but they don't have a right to interfere with the comings and goings at the courthouse. And so I think, I'm confident that the security dealing with this has dealt with situations before, probably not at this magnitude, but that they will be able to keep protesters apart from those people who need to access the court to do the business of the court.
Paul, Barb alluded to this, and I kind of want to have some fun with both of you, so I'm going to ask you both the same question. We're not going to have cameras inside the courtroom, but we know that jury selection is supposed to start Monday. Now, for those of us who are not familiar, jury selection is probably one of the most important things that you can do as a trial attorney in terms of picking your jury. And we're going to talk more about that later in the show. But I want to hear from you and from Barb, being the super lawyers that you are. Who is your ideal juror if you're, Paul, trying to convict Donald Trump, and Barbara, if you're trying to acquit Donald Trump, who's your ideal juror? So, Paul, give me the profile, if you will, of your ideal juror for conviction if you're the prosecutor here.
Such a great question, Charles, because the judge is taking every step to ensure an objective jury. He's giving both the prosecutors and the defense attorneys extra time to ask a whole bunch of questions of potential jurors. But as you acknowledge, he's the only person in the room who wants an objective juror. Prosecutors want someone who is likely to convict Donald Trump. They want someone who is not afraid to sit in judgment. They don't want someone who's trying to get on the jury just to be on the jury. They want someone who will consider the evidence in this case. The best evidence is going to be documents. Documents don't lie. So they want someone to look at those business records that Bragg says Donald Trump ordered to be falsified as legal payments to cover up his relationship with Stormy Daniels and prevent it from becoming public. So when I was a prosecutor, we didn't want people who were scientists. We were concerned that they might have too high a standard of proof about reasonable doubt. We didn't want religious people because we thought they might be concerned about sitting in judgment of someone. He's got a good jury pool in Manhattan. Almost everybody in Manhattan voted for Biden. That doesn't mean that they're going to use their politics to convict Donald Trump. But it does mean they're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's a former president.
Barb, really quickly, I got like 15 seconds. Who's your ideal juror here, if you're the defense?
Well, the real MAGA enthusiasts are likely to be weeded out in jury selection. So I want someone who's a disruptor, somebody who maybe doesn't have a 9-to-5 job, somebody who is, more likely to be skeptical of institutions and of law enforcement. And so those are the people I might be looking for a good juror for Donald Trump.
There you have it from two of the best in the business, Paul Butler and Barbara McQuaid. Thank you both.